On this Thursday night, remembering a global superstar, his artistry on the pitch.
I got the gift from God to play football.
And appeal that transcended the sport. The remarkable life of Brazilian soccer legend Pelé. Renewed pandemic restrictions for travelers from China. Should Canada act now with cases spiking there?
Obviously, this is a situation that we're monitoring very, very closely.
Honoring Canadian greatness and calls to make the Order of Canada more equitable. Plus, stories of survival in the Buffalo storm.
Only thing he said was, if you didn't let me in, I was going to die.
How a barber shop became a refuge for dozens.
Global National with Donna Friesen. Reporting tonight, Chris Galis.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. And we start with the death of a football legend whose influence and popularity around the world can't be overstated. Pelé's list of accolades includes being named Athlete of the Century by the IOC and one of the most important people of the 20th century by Time magazine. Pelé died today at the age of 82 from cancer complications. And as Mike Drolet reports, he was beloved around the world, but in Brazil, he was revered.
Edson Arantes do Nascimento was born in 1940. 18 years before, his sublime skills with the ball would earn football the nickname the beautiful game. To Brazil, Pelé was everything: a prodigy, a superstar, a talisman.
I got the gift from God to play football. Then my father used to say, listen, if you got the gift from God to play, if you be in good shape, nobody stop you.
Outside the hospital where he was put in palliative care, his fans lit candles and contemplated a world without Pelé. Never again will football have a Pelé, says this fan. Never again will football enchant the planet as it did when he laced up his cleats. Pelé played the majority of his career for the Brazilian club Santos, although the big clubs in Europe were certainly interested. In 1958, Santos was forced to tear up a contract agreeing to send Pelé to Italy after fans revolted. A few years later, the Brazilian government declared him an official national treasure, an actual law preventing Santos from making millions in transfer fees from foreign clubs. Confined to playing in Brazil, Pelé did what he did best, scoring goals and leading Brazil to 3 World Cup wins on the way to becoming the first black global superstar. His influence was such that in 1969, 2 factions in the Nigerian Civil War agreed to a 48-hour ceasefire so they could watch Pelé play. An exhibition match.
I met him many, many times in South America or wherever, the global football community comes together. He's just such a wonderful person, and he's been the greatest of all. There's no doubt about it, Pelé.
He finished his career playing in the U.S. for the New York Cosmos, drawing sold-out crowds in a country that was somehow in awe of Pelé, while not fully understanding the game he dominated. After hanging up his cleats, he devoted his time to children's charities and improving social conditions for the poorest in Brazil. And as Brazil's sports minister, he stayed clear of the corruption that would engulf football, drafting legislation to create more transparency and fairness. One of his teammates once marveled at his fame, saying, "In some countries, they wanted to touch him. In some, they wanted to kiss him. In others, they even kissed the ground he walked on." How beautiful is that? Mike Drolet, Global News.
Now, Ontario's top cop is calling for changes to the bail system after the shooting death of a rookie officer this week. Constable Greg Pierce-Challow was shot and killed, responding to a call about a car in a ditch on Tuesday. The Ontario Provincial Police Commissioner says Pierce-Challow was ambushed and had no chance of being able to defend himself. Randall McKenzie and Brandy Crystal Lynn Stewart Sperry have been charged with first-degree murder. McKenzie was already wanted for breaking bail conditions and banned from possessing guns.
I'm outraged by the fact that McKenzie was out on bail and was provided the opportunity to take the life of an innocent officer. And I know that there's a lot of interest in ensuring to see that changes are made to ensure, where possible, people who are charged with violent offenses that are firearms related are not in those positions moving forward.
Pierschallo was equipped with a body camera at the time of his death. Investigators are reviewing that footage and canvassing the area for any witnesses. To the war in Ukraine now, where Russia has launched its largest series of missile strikes against the country in weeks, once again targeting the energy infrastructure of major Ukrainian cities. Ukraine's military claims it was able to shoot down most of the missiles, but it's another attack leaving hundreds of thousands of people without power and vulnerable in winter. Redmond Shannon has more.
Ukrainians are now wearily used to the sound of Russian missiles. This, the 10th such barrage across the country since October, according to Ukraine's Prime Minister. But the noise over Kyiv and other cities also included the sound of defense missiles. Ukraine's military says it shot down 54 of at least 69 Russian missiles, as well as most kamikaze drones. Kyiv says it needs more of these defense systems, even though it believes Moscow is running out of missiles.
We're going to continue to strengthen Ukraine's ability to defend itself.
The US has pledged its advanced Patriot missile system to Ukraine to do just that. But intercepted rockets have to fall to the ground somewhere. At least 3 people were injured by debris in Kyiv. And Ukraine says this Russian missile struck a house, but somehow didn't explode.
The Russians want to bring us to black time, to without lighting, to without heating. Instead, them Ukrainian people very angry, and they told, better we stay without electricity, without heating, but we never give up.
The mayor of Lviv, near the Polish border, says 90% of his city was without power Thursday. Attacks on energy infrastructure may amount to a war crime. Russian authorities, meanwhile, say its air defences shot down another drone near an airbase 500 kilometres inside Russia. 3 Russian Air Force personnel were killed in a similar incident there on Monday. The Kremlin called Ukraine's proposal for a February peace summit extravagant and delirious, Moscow demanding Ukraine give up fighting for the regions annexed by Russia. Kyiv says reclaiming all annexed land, including Crimea, is central to any peace, something that feels as far away as ever. Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.
And another sign of how increasingly volatile the war has become. Ukraine's neighbor and Russian ally, Belarus, says it shot down a stray Ukrainian air defense missile within its borders. Video released by state media there shows debris in a farm field. There are no reports of any deaths or injuries, but Belarus foreign minister summoned Ukraine's ambassador demanding an investigation into the incident. Benjamin Netanyahu is once again the Prime Minister of Israel. He was sworn in on Thursday, along with his coalition government, the most hardline administration in the country's history. Netanyahu, who was ousted as Prime Minister 18 months ago, has had to join forces with ultra-nationalist and ultra-Orthodox Jewish allies to form his cabinet. And it's come with some controversial policies, including anti-LGBTQ2 rhetoric, religious discrimination, and promises to continue building settlements in the West Bank. Internationally and internally, the swearing in was met with protest. Many fear the new government will incite more violent conflict with Palestinians over rights and land disputes. The U.S. has joined a growing list of countries introducing new COVID-19 testing requirements for travelers from China. Cases are surging in that country, and the concern is that new variants will emerge there and spread globally. Touria Izri looks at whether Canada will bring in similar rules.
COVID patients are pouring into Chinese hospitals, while funeral homes are packed full. The consequences of Beijing abruptly ending its COVID-0 policy.
China has suddenly loosened up its restrictions left and right, and that's just provided an extraordinary opportunity for this virus to just, like a volcano, explode.
That volcano could unleash new variants that will eventually land in other countries.
Suddenly, one place becomes the weakest link of the whole world.
Ready for testing? As of next week, the United States will require negative COVID tests for passengers from China as young as 2 years old and regardless of their nationality or whether they're fully vaccinated. Cases are surging in a country with little immunity and relatively low vaccination rates. The U.S. now joins a growing list of countries. Japan, India, Taiwan, and Italy are all bringing in similar rules. For now, the Canadian government has no plans on doing the same.
Canada took an evidence-based approach when it came to health protocols at the border. Obviously, this is a situation that we're monitoring very, very closely.
But there are questions about how effective airport testing really is. Travel restrictions at the start of the pandemic were not able to keep new variants out. The Chinese Foreign Ministry says countries should take what it calls a science-based approach.
At the moment, there is no obvious indication there are any new variants emerging from China. But the problem we have is we have so little data from China that we really don't know what's going on.
And with so little known, there are fears this will be the worst outbreak since the start of the pandemic. Touria Izri, Global News, Ottawa.
Parts of southern Ontario are still digging out from that big winter storm last weekend. Today, homeowners were able to go back and assess the damage. Global's Sean O'Shea has the latest from one of the hardest hit communities. Sean.
Chris, most of the power in this community is finally back on, but the experiences of the last week will be frozen in the memories of many people here. After a powerful storm, an all-out effort to get the power back on.
I said, please turn the top power on. I can't take any more of this cold.
Residents of Crystal Beach, part of Fort Erie, are coming back to their homes, in some cases after days. So it wasn't safe to stay?
No, it wasn't safe to stay.
Wind chills in the minus 25 range last week froze up everything. Obvious on the shoreline, leaving homes frozen over. Beautiful on the outside, not so if you were inside without heat.
I got into my driveway and I was done for days.
The snow and wind too intense for Brian Brown to get out right away. Today he came home to see his power finally back on. Others spent 4 days without power, like Anastasia Potter.
You don't take the little things for granted. Power is huge, huge. I think my kids took it for granted until this storm. It's huge.
The storm here didn't just rip down trees or affect people.
We found another goose here buried in the ice.
Volunteers went out on the water, chipping away to save wildlife.
We got this goose, and he's completely stuck in the ice.
Success. The geese were rescued, warmed up, and survived. In this battle against harsh winter elements, some people learned from previous storms and bought generators instead of something more flashy.
I thought to myself, you'd think twice about picking up a new motorcycle or a toy. So I opted for the generator, and I'm very glad I did.
A lesson others may take from this storm. And now a new worry here, flooding. Temperatures are well above freezing, and there's rain in the forecast. Chris?
All right, Sean O'Shea in Crystal Beach, Ontario. Thanks, Sean. Sanctuary in the storm. Coming up, the Buffalo barbershop that likely saved a lot of lives. Plus, conflicted about the Order of Canada. The message from one notable recipient. Canadian country music legend Ian Tyson has died at the age of 89. Tyson started his career in the 50s as part of the folk duo Ian and Sylvia. He then built a solo career as a country music singer. Tyson is a member of the Canadian Country Music Hall of Fame and the Canadian Music Hall of Fame. He received the Order of Canada in 1994. Now, among the list of 99 new appointees to the Order of Canada are several names you'll recognize. Sidney Crosby and Eugene Levy, for instance. But the Honourable Harry S. Laforme is one you may not. The first Indigenous Court of Appeal judge is noted for advancing national Indigenous rights. And advocates say Rideau Hall needs to do more to open the nomination process for women, racialized Canadians, and Indigenous people. Neetu Garcha reports.
It came time to announce it, and I practically couldn't sleep the night before.
Harry Laforme, the first Indigenous appeal court judge in Canada, has been appointed to the Order of Canada. He reflects on his 2002 decision that led to the legalization of same-sex marriage in Ontario and his research into an independent body for wrongful convictions.
I know there's more than one a year that should be exonerated.
He's among 99 new members of one of the country's highest civilian honors.
Everybody
Daddy, come on in!
Also on the list, Olympic bronze medalist Karina LeBlanc for her contributions to the sport of soccer worldwide.
It's an honor beyond something I could have dreamt of.
Crosby, he scored!
And three-time Stanley Cup champion Sidney Crosby for his hockey career and support of youth initiatives. Comedian Eugene Levy for elevating Canadian television on the international stage. As well as Hamlin Grange, who helped establish the Ontario-based group Operation Black Vote Canada for his social justice work. The group's chair thinks many who are worthy go unnoticed.
I think it's long overdue for a lot of Black Canadians to receive this award.
The organization is among several who've pointed out the slow progress in nominating more women and people of color.
Black Canadians have been here for hundreds of years. We were here before Canada was Canada, and we've contributed to the fabric of what is our society. And I think it's time that we're recognized for the contributions that we've made to this country.
Rideau Hall, in a statement, says it's working to identify and address barriers to Canadian honours experienced by equity-deserving groups so that the Order of Canada reflects all of Canadian society.
I'm excited for a reason, because I think it's important to my people, and I think it's important to say that you made a contribution to Canada that's meaningful.
And some of the appointees say it's important for young people of all backgrounds to see themselves reflected in the spotlight for their achievements, dedication, and service. Neetu Garcha, Global News.
Political chaos. Just ahead, we'll take a look back on a hectic year for Alberta MLAs and voters. Well, 2022 has seen plenty of notable stories in Canadian politics, but not many places had the political drama we've seen in Alberta with its twists and turns. The ousting of Jason Kenney, closing the year with a controversial new premier, and a push towards provincial sovereignty kept residents and reporters on their toes. Heather Yorix-West looks at what it all means for 2023.
Lunchtime at the Buzz in Nanton, Alberta. Meatball subs are on the menu, and politics are on the brain.
Oh, that's a juicy question. I'm intrigued by the election of our new premier and looking forward to seeing how successful she can be.
What's going on with the sovereignty and with the healthcare, those are the two big major things that have me concerned.
For the last several years, Alberta voters have been on quite the roller coaster.
There has been a lot of drama in this province. The rise and fall of Jason Kenney, the whole battle over the leadership review, then the leadership race, then Danielle Smith, where there's a story a day.
Yeah, for sure. Which may be why people here are looking to catch their breath. Rural Alberta is usually a conservative stronghold, but when it comes to next spring's election?
I don't see that at all. I think the UCP has got some work to do.
Do you know who you're going to vote for yet in the provincial election?
I would say no.
No, I don't.
Rural Alberta is not monolithic any longer, and it looks like Danielle Smith might have her work cut out for her in a series of polls.
Those numbers suggest a very tight race between Premier Danielle Smith and NDP leader Rachel Notley, with a lot riding on how Smith uses her first piece of legislation, the Alberta Sovereignty Act.
We still don't know what sorts of federal action she's planning to challenge, whether that's going to be effective in dealing with some of the concerns that Albertans have.
Those outside Alberta will be watching this play out too, with provinces like Saskatchewan and Quebec anxious to know whether this so-called constitutional shield can really lead to more provincial powers.
My fear is that it may not accomplish what the Premier thinks it's going to accomplish. So I'm conflicted. Let's leave it at that.
And that's perhaps Smith's biggest threat, that her plan for Alberta sovereignty won't keep her own party from splintering. 2023 primed to be another wild ride. Heather Yorix-West, Global News, Nanton, Alberta.
Barbershop shelter. Next, how a heroic act likely saved dozens from the deadly Buffalo blizzard. Recovery efforts are still underway in Buffalo, New York after last week's deadly blizzard. As the community digs out, we're learning more about the Good Samaritans who stepped up during some very difficult days. Erica Vela reports.
I thought it was just going to be a normal Buffalo snowy day.
But the blizzard was anything but normal. The deadly deep freeze paralyzing the city of Buffalo last week. Craig Elston was in his barber shop that day.
I knew it was real when by 12 o'clock Friday, it was a whiteout and high winds and extremely cold.
Elston luckily had power, and both he and his client decided to hunker down for the night. But at around 9 p.m., there was a knock at the door. It was a man seeking refuge.
I let him in, and only thing he said was, if you didn't let me in within a few minutes, I was going to die.
It was in that moment that Elston decided to act, making an appeal on social media.
Do not stay in your car, man. The barbershop here at 707 Fillmore welcomes you.
It went viral immediately. People calling me and say, hey, there's somebody right around the corner. They're in the car stuck. Could you go check on them?
At one point, Elston braved the conditions to look for anyone in need of a place to stay. Elston says up to 50 people sheltered inside his barbershop.
Some people was only charging their phones. Some people was only coming in to get warm, to go where they was going. And some people end up staying the night.
He wasn't the only quick thinker that day. Other community members stepped up when they saw people in need, like this woman.
I found him yesterday. I heard him screaming for help.
Who brought a man into her home and cared for his injuries before taking him to hospital. And a group of friends saved up to 50 people who were stranded using their snowmobiles. Elston says that day he acted on impulse.
I felt like it was just the right thing to do. I just wanted to keep people warm.
And that simple act of kindness going a long way for those in need.
I'm no hero. I'm just a normal, average guy that cuts hair that has a heart.
Eric Avella, Global News, Toronto.
He sure does. All right, that's Global National for this Thursday. I'm Chris Galis. Tonight's Your Canada is Point Pelly National Park near Leamington, Ontario. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here tomorrow.